We don't want you to be planning with any imaginary money. Hello YouTube, it's your best friend Bethany. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've already been here before. Today I'm going to go over how I budget monthly as a 24-year-old. Of course, people can be in different situations, whether you have kids, whether you're in a relationship, whether you have pets, whether you just bought a car, different payments. But for me, I'm 24 years old, I am single, I do not have any pets. I live in Kansas City, which is pretty affordable rent-wise in comparison to different places I've lived, like California and Washington. And I am currently paying off student loans, and I am trying to pay them off pretty aggressively, so I can hopefully get them paid off in a total of 6 years instead of their 10-year idea. If you want to see more videos like this, definitely leave a comment down below and let me know what kind of videos you want to see. If you want me to go into depth a little bit more about anything I'm talking about, or if it makes you think of something else you want to see from me, definitely leave a comment down below. And definitely subscribe and join the Beth Friend family. My goal is to hit 200 by the end of October, so hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any of my content and you want to just support my channel. If you want to see more daily content, definitely follow my Instagram account. I do post there almost every day. And then I also have my food Instagram shared down below, because I post on there different plant-based food meals I make at home, and then sometimes if I eat out, different meals that I'm choosing and seeing out and about. But back to budgeting, let's get right into the video. So if you see me looking down, I did make some notes, but you'll see I did make a general overview of my October budget, and I kind of want to go over how I do that. Whether you do this on a piece of paper, whether you have a notebook dedicated to your budget, or whether you do this on a Google Docs, I do suggest that you, no matter what, have one version that is digital that you can keep somewhere so that you don't lose it. So whether that's saved on your computer or in a Google Doc, that way you never have to start from scratch when you redo this month to month, or if you lose a paper or whatever that is. I keep my general budget on a Google Doc, and I'll update it every now and then, but it's not always totally up to date compared to the papers I have right here. But it always gives me a basic structure to go back to if I am starting from scratch again. That way you never really have to start from scratch again, because that's not that fun. So the biggest thing to know about how I budget is I divide it into 4 different sections, and the first section is going to be essentials. The second section is going to be debt, and you can of course name these different things as you go, but for essentials, it's going to be things like utilities, food, insurance, things that you know you have to pay every month. And if you are unsure if whether you've hit all of it, a good way to check is to go back into previous statements. And then debt, for me, that can be many things to other people, or you can label it something else, but this would be where you want to put your student loans, how much you have total, and then how much you have to pay each month, and then how much you want to pay each month. So that way, if it really is a tight month, you don't have to hit your goal to attack it aggressively, but you're always hitting at least a minimum that hits so that you are always paying enough to pay for interest that's been accrued and hitting the principal amount. For me, under my debt section, I have my student debt, and then I put down my 2 credit cards so that I always make sure to stay on top of it. Whether I completely pay it off one month or I keep some on there, I always make sure that I have those under there so that I know how much I have accrued in each of those cards, and then I make sure I at least pay off the minimum. But I always try to kind of attack those aggressively, because I never want to have too much there, because these are for me, my credit cards are more of just in case I need to use them, are more of a just in case there is an unexpected spend that goes over what my budget is. But of course, do not get credit cards unless you fully understand what that means, and you know what you're doing, and you've talked about it with your parents or your trusted friends, family. I'm not saying you have to have a credit card. There are different ways to build up your credit as well, but I do have 2, although I don't use them that frequently. The next section I have is income, and this will be where you can put how much you are going to make, whether you are on salary, how many hours of pay you average, how much you think you will make on average each month if you are hourly. And this is especially critical if you do have multiple And this is especially critical if you have multiple streams of income, which I do. So for me, I am self-employed and I do contract work as an executive assistant and as a marketing specialist. And so I currently have one client and I have my budget set around that. And then I also have 2 part-time jobs that are very infrequent. One of them I only have to work 3 shifts a month, but I can work more if I want. And the other one is based off a national sports league, and I only work the home game, so that's only 2 times a month. The last section that I budget for is unexpected or other, whatever you want to call it. For me, like for October this month, it's my sister's birthday, and so I put down, even though I don't know the exact cost yet because she doesn't have her schedule set because she is a nurse, and so it will be last minute, because I do want to take the train from Kansas City to Chicago because she lives right at the top of Indiana, instead of driving the whole way because I do not like driving. So I put that down under the unexpected for the month, and that's train to, and I put train to Ashley, my sister, and I put an estimate of $200 because when I was looking, they're around 70 each, and so it just gives me a little leeway if it is a little bit more expensive. But making sure you have this all set up like that will really help you when you're trying to look at what extra money you may have, where you want to put it, whether you want to do more savings wise, whether you want to pay off more of a loan or a credit card or a mortgage, whatever you have for your for you personally, or you want to put it into a certain savings. Making sure that you have the bases covered first really helps you so that you can understand how much income you do have extra each month, or if you are spending too much based on how much you are making. So one tip I have for all this too is to definitely go through, as I said before, a previous month, or go through a previous standard month if the month you had before was kind of random, had some weird charges, or it was just a difficult month and it was different than how it normally is. Go to a typical month on your bank statements and kind of go through and make sure you're not missing any of your basic essentials that you pay monthly, and then go through and see how much you're spending on some big categories. So for me, I am a clothing shopper. I love to shop, and I have been really working on trying to keep track of that because it really adds up. Say you're going to Target and you're picking up a few things that you need, like you're out of paper towels and toilet paper, and then you decide to walk through the women's clothing section, and then you decide to buy a few items. That adds up. You know, say you spend $25 only on clothes there, but then you go and order stuff online, and you allow yourself to have this much money to spend on clothing a month. It is really helpful to come up with goals on how much you want to spend on luxuries that you know you don't have to have, but are things that you want to treat yourself with. So maybe I was extra bad last month, and so I don't let myself buy anything this month. Or now when you go to Target, you think about that and you're like, oh, that's $25. I've already spent $150 on that order that's coming in a few weeks that I ordered online during that sale. So just trying to make sure you think of those big categories that you're spending in and making goals. Another one that was a big one for me before quarantine and before I stopped drinking is drinks. Alcohol is very expensive. So even if you're only going out a few times a week, or if you only go out once a week, or if you only go out a few times a month, a drink is normally, I can't say for Kansas City, but when I was living in California, a drink is $9 to $10. You're gonna tip as well. So that, depending on how you tip, it's gonna be an assured $10 to $13. And that's one drink. So say you are someone who has 3 to 4 drinks a night, that quickly adds up. So if you're planning to have 4 drinks a night and you're planning to go out 3 times a week, math, that would be 40 times, so let's just say it's $10 a drink. Say the drink's $9 and you only tip $1. So say you buy 10 drinks. So say you buy 4 drinks in one night, that's $40. Say you go out 3 times, 40 times 3 is $120. And say you do that every week. So that would be $120 times 4. So that would be $480 a month spent on alcohol. It quickly adds up. So all I'm saying, I'm not telling anyone to stop drinking. It's a personal decision. Drinking alcohol or partaking in any substances is a personal decision when it's legal, but definitely take into account how much that's going to add to your spending. And not to mention whether you have a habit of, after partaking in drinks, that you always spend money eating out after or during. So just take those into mind and then create goals of how much you want to spend. Look at how much you were spending on that in a previous month, and if that's where too much of your money is going to, and you don't want to prioritize that monetarily, you need to make sure that you're making goals for yourself. And with alcohol, shopping, eating out. What you want to do is estimate how much it would cost per one of those. For shopping, maybe you buy a few items at a time and that's normally $100 or $50. Whatever that is, kind of find an estimate of how much you would allow yourself for one outing and not in average and not feel weird about it. And then for alcohol, how much do you spend on one night of drinking or one day of drinking? Whatever you do, to each their own. Or eating out, how much do you spend normally on one meal eating out? And then from there, you should try to make goals for how much you would want to spend in a month. And if you only want to spend $100 in a month on alcohol, then you need to divide that by 4. $25 a week. That's $25 a week on alcohol. So that quickly adds up. That's like 2.5 drinks. So all I'm saying is you need to be realistic about this, because if you are only budgeting for $100 of spend on alcohol or on clothing or on eating out, and you're really not thinking about how much that means per week, you're gonna quickly go over what your budget is. So that's a little tip from me. I have seen it and I've learned from it and I've done it. So definitely something, it helps to come up with a monthly goal and then a weekly goal and just keep yourself in check. And with these goals though, another important tip is to make these realistic. If you are spending a lot on alcohol, or on eating out, or on clothing. Maybe clothing is not the right one, but that's not exactly a habit. It can be, and whatever. But if you're spending a lot on eating out and drinking, don't say you're gonna spend a quarter of what you typically did on a typical month if you're not really planning to be really strict about it, because you're gonna be setting yourself up for failure. You can slowly decrease your budget if you have the luxury of being able to spend that much on that. Then you can make goals for yourself and slowly decrease those goals so you can create a habit out of it. So you're not just creating this unrealistic expectation of completely changing your spending habits, and those spending habits having to do with lifestyle habits of drinking, of eating out instead of cooking at home. Another tip I have for budgeting is always to assume you're going to be on the higher end of your utilities. And worst come to worst, you've over budgeted for what your utility is for that, whether that's power or water, electricity, whatever your utilities are. If it isn't a set rate and you are doing it based on how much you use, if you base it off one of your highest months, then you will always have, then you will almost always have extra, or you won't get in a situation where you haven't budgeted enough money for it. Then if you have extra money from that, you can put it towards your savings, or you can put it towards something that wasn't on your list because you didn't have enough during your budget. Whether that means you can buy a new buy a shirt when you go to Target and you're just supposed to be getting toilet paper, or if you want to put it towards your student loans. It sets you up to have more control over that and not have the unfortunate occurrence of not having enough for utilities. I feel like this video is all over the place, but I just wanted to sit down and talk and kind of like share what I do. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you do want me to try to do this more in like a list format or something else in the future for different videos like this, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Will not be offended. But I am of course still getting used to making YouTube videos, and I'm enjoying being able to share what I can and things that I've learned and learned from other people. So definitely let me know if there's a specific way you would like to see this in the future. So another tip specifically for loans or debt or whatever that means for you, things that you have to pay a certain amount off, but there is more looming and you could pay off more. What I do personally is so for me that's student loans. And so what I do is I make a goal for how much I would want to pay off of my student loans per year, and then what that would look like per month. And so what it does is it gives me a chance to write down on my budget how much that's going to be. For me, I want to pay off $300 a month on my student loans. And then I do note what the minimum would be if I still want to pay off all the interest and then still hit the principal. So that way, if I can't pay off the aggressive amount that I want to pay each month, I at least know how much I need to pay minimum, and I can of course pay the minimum or something in between if it gets down to the wire and there's something weird about this month spend wise. Having a goal like this and kind of looking at goals, per how much you want to spend per week, per month, per year based on whatever that is, gives you a better big picture of how much you can be paying off. And so that you're not setting yourself up to think that you're doing better than you are. Like I started off paying my loans with a little bit more than what they suggested for the 10-year plan that they put me on. And I realized with the 10-year plan they put me on, it wasn't going to be a 10-year plan. It wasn't paying off the principal enough for it to be a 10-year plan. And so I made it a little bit more aggressive. But then I realized I still was barely paying off the principal, and it was going to be 10 years, and I thought I was being aggressive. So when you actually calculate it out, you can set more realistic expectations for yourself and how long it's going to take to pay something off, or how much you can save in a certain amount of time, instead of just being like, oh, that's a lot of money, let me do that and that's going to be successful. You know, you want to actually calculate this out so you're making strategic moves financially. Don't worry, only a few more. I have 2 more tips, and the first one is going to be if you get your paycheck bi-weekly and you have a huge spend. My biggest spend is going to be my rent, and I am paid bi-weekly. And if you end up getting paid halfway through the month and at the beginning of the month and at the end and around the first week of the next month, or however it's scattered, if you see that your next paycheck is after the first of a month, use the middle paycheck, use the second paycheck of that month to pay off your rent or whatever your highest spend is, instead of waiting, and use it to pay it off immediately. Because sometimes it takes a little bit for that money to transfer over, or but whatever the case is, I actually pay normally 2 weeks ahead of when my rent is due, just because that is when I am paid. That is when I am last paid before the first of the month. It just sets me up to not have to worry about it, and not have to and not get in a situation where I accidentally spent too much because I wasn't thinking about the spend, my biggest spend coming up, my rent. And then my biggest tip, my biggest, most basic tip is when you are doing your budgeting, like I was showing how you have your essentials, your income, you know, unexpected things that you know you're gonna have to pay in the month that are other, or just something that you don't pay every month, and then debt. Make sure that you subtract all of the have to pay essential pays, utilities, insurance, and then from your debt, your minimums, and then the unexpected things that you know you have to pay that aren't an option, from your income first, before you plan any of how much you want to spend on alcohol, eating out, shopping, and then even paying loans aggressively or savings. Before you decide to put any of that to anywhere but essential, you need to subtract all the things you have to pay from what you're going to make. We don't want you to be planning with any imaginary money. So that's going to be my last tip. I hope this video was helpful at all. Definitely leave any questions down below. Once again, please subscribe. I am trying to reach 200 by the end of October. But thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.